Hello DIYers, here we are with my Aselkon Emperador LS1. Last time I tried to adjust the pressure regulator so that I'd be pushing a little bit more power into the slugs I want to shoot. I had a leak from here. Now I haven't yet identified exactly where it is. We're going to try and address that today and figure out, see if there's any broken O-rings or blown O-rings, let's see. Or maybe a loose, because I loosened something to try and achieve that before I figured out exactly how to regulate the, how to adjust the regulator. And in the meantime, while we're at it, we're going to change the broken gauge we have this side because it just won't work anymore. These gauges are terrible. As you see, there's no pressure now. They're the same here on the regulator pressure and on the cylinder pressure. As you see, it's totally out of pressure. You just hear the hammer hit the valve stem, and yet it's above 50 bar here. So that's not a good sign. I mean, I could take a little bit off, but that's 60 bar off. Not too good. They're both like this, and the one in this pressure cylinder is just stuck altogether. It just won't move at all, and it might even be leaking. I have to seal it. So while we take this apart, try to figure out what's happening here, and we'll remove replace the gauge in the front. I have here a replacement and replacement washer. Hopefully this one won't leak. So let's get cracking. I have already loosened it up. If you can't loosen the pressure cylinder away from the regulator, we have, I don't know if you can see it here. There is here we have the power plenum. I don't know if you can see, there is like a washer in between, and then there's the pressure cylinder. The washer in between isn't really a washer. It's the whole pressure regulator assembly. It's all stuck in one piece. Well, I'm going to take it apart and I'll show you. So I've already loosened this because it's sometimes factory it's definitely hard. I don't advise you to tighten it very tight, because then you run into the same trouble each time you might need to examine the internals of the rifle. So to help myself, I wrap some plastic around this because it's very easy to scrape. This scrape is actually from the rifle rubbing against a rucksack, a backpack. So this finish is terrible. It's not anodized. It's just some shiny paint. I don't know exactly what it is. Anyway, I wrap plastic around it tightly. When it's stretched, I wrap it around, and then I use this tool, which is actually meant for undoing the oil cartridges in cars. I use this to grab the perfectly cylindrical pressure cylinder, and then I can use a wrench on the other side where there's space for a wrench, or just use one hand as tight as I can on the other side of the wrench, because also this side, if you take the probe cap off, this also has a wrench, but if down the other side is too tight, then this whole assembly will come out, which is the fill probe, its check valve, and the pressure gauge. So anyway, it's all hand loose. If you need it, use the automotive wrench. It'll come in handy. So here we are. I'll put the rest of the gun away for the moment. So this is 25 millimeter, I think. Let me measure it. or is it 1 inch? I'm not sure. Let's have a look. Yeah, 24 millimeters. It's not 1 inch. So for all these weird sizes, it gets expensive getting wrenches like this. This is 23, 21. So for all these weird sizes, I have this adjustable one. This is already loose, but just, you know, just to see, this would tighten to exactly the size you need, and then you can take this off. I discovered this this pressure gauge has a very unusual thread. It's parallel. Maybe I can get that to focus. Maybe not. Anyway, it's parallel threads, so it's face sealing, and generally parallel threads face sealing in this application would be BSPP, but this is not a BSPP thread. This is actually metric. This is 10 by 1. So be careful when you're buying pressure gauges for the Aselkon. There might be metric ones. Very unusual. Anyway, I put in the washer first. It should be good enough to seal without any rubber. That's how it's meant to seal. Okay, and then we'll tighten it by hand. Well, we'll hold the pressure cylinder by hand, and we'll tighten the gauge with the wrench. Okay, and hopefully that's sealed. So that should address that. I am not sure if, I don't know if you can see, there is an O-ring in there, which is actually what seals the high pressure side against the pressure regulator. That doesn't appear to be damaged. Let's have a better look at it, but I don't see any eaten pieces out of it, so that seems to be fine. So either that may have got dirty, or while I was trying to fiddle with the regulator, let's see if I can take it out without disassembling the entire thing. Oh, I don't think I can. Okay, the pressure regulator comes also with another wrench cut into the threads, but you can't get at it because this thing, this Picatinny rail, which incidentally is way too far back to be any use apart from a tripod. You wouldn't want your bipod to be sitting so far back. You would want it all the way down here where the end of the pressure cylinder is. Tripod will actually need to balance with the gun, so this would be okay for the tripod, but not for the bipod or any lighting system. You're holding the rifle, your front hand will be up here somewhere behind whatever light you have here, so it's I don't know, weird. If they really wanted to be helpful, they would have put something all the way down. Never mind. So we need to take this off to get at that. You should have made it a little bit shorter since it doesn't go all the way. So we need an Allen wrench for that. If I remember right, this is the right one. Yeah. Incidentally, because of these slots, the little bolt in there, if it gets stuck in an awkward situation, it's a pain trying to get it out. So I leave the bolts in there. I take out the whole trigger guard assembly with that Picatinny thing. and I put it aside on its own with the bolts sticking in there. So now we have that off. Let's see, that might not need the special one. Yes, that's a 21. Oh, it's probably tighter than I wanted it, but anyway. Yeah, okay. Now that it's loose. Okay. So the leak didn't appear to be coming from the back side, from the low pressure side. The low pressure side seals against an O-ring that's here on the face. It didn't seem to be leaking from there. So either in here, the seal between the high pressure side and here, because the cylinder seals on this, and inside the little piston that does the regulation seals against the wall. There's an O-ring in there. That might have slipped, or this thing that's actually screwed on and then held by this pin can twist a little bit, and I'm thinking that maybe as I loosened this, thinking that that would be the way to regulate it, and then discovered it wasn't. I'll take it apart and show you. Actually, I might need a tool for that. Let me go and grab it quickly. This procedure tool. Let's hope the battery doesn't die on me while I'm doing this. So this happens to twist a little bit. I'm gonna now screw it. Yeah. Screw it all the way, hoping that maybe if it was whatever is sealing this against the body is was loose, and the O-ring might have managed to squeeze out. So that's all tight. Now let me show you how you would actually regulate this. So initially I thought that this little screw here would be something to do with the regulation, but it wasn't. This is just to let the little valve that keeps your pressure cylinder pressurized even when you have it off. So there's a little check valve in there with a nipple that's proud, and it would hit this and let the valve open and let the air through. So that's mainly there just for that reason. It was actually thread locked with some really aggressive thread lock, so it took me a while to figure this one out. But in here we have another plastic slotted screw, and that's what this pressure regulator piston pushes against and seals with. So twisting that would adjust your pressure. Now what I did last time is I unscrewed it half a revolution, and hoping that would be enough but not too much. And then what actually happened is that I think it locked the whole pressure regulator. The piston wasn't able to squeeze the spring washers enough to seal, and then I had unregulated pressure on the plenum. This is and I also noticed a very awkward thing. When that was happening, I still couldn't get any more speed out of my pellets. They were still coming out. The slugs. I was doing this to shoot slugs. So when the pressure gauge on the plenum, on the regulated pressure here was something between 50 and 100, so I don't know, I'm guessing around 75, but this is offset, so I'm not really sure what the pressure there was. Anyway, once I did that, it was just basically following the pressure. It went all the way up nearly to 200, but I'm sure it wasn't going all the way up to 200 because this is a really bad gauge. I'm sure it was the full pressure, whatever I had in the pressure cylinder, and it followed. It didn't stop there waiting for the pressure to come down to it. It just all the time it was coming down, and at the same time, when I noticed with my chrony, the slugs were still coming out at 200 meters per second all the time, until the pressure went way below 100 and, I don't know, 100 something bar, and then the velocity started dropping. So tuning this rifle at different speeds, different energy levels is something that might be a little bit more challenging. The only way to adjust that is this variable choke on the transfer port, but it's already set to maximum, so I wasn't able to get any more power out of it. I will have a look at when I managed to get this off. The plenum is screwed here onto the breech block, but I haven't been able to unscrew this even with the tool I was showing you before. When I managed to get that off and the valve assembly, this part of it that comes out this way, so to be able to access it, you need to disassemble this piece. When I manage to get that, I'll have a look at what the valve is like, because obviously there's something going on there. It's actually in one aspect it's actually really good, because I went from 200 bar to 120 bar, and my extreme velocity spread was like 198 to 202. That's 4 meters per second. It's quite good for a budget gun, unregulated, because at that point the regulator was doing nothing. So that was fairly good. But on the other side, it's very, very hard to get more power out of this gun, so that's a little bit frustrating. So let's get this off, and I have a little. There's a handy to get this seizure off. There is something. Well, I'm not sure if it's meant for that, but there's an M4 thread here in the air passage. So if you screw an M4 bolt in there, all the way is fine. Then get a G-clamp of some sort. And I'm not sure if I should try before actually disassembling this, because whenever I take this apart, putting that seizure back in is a pain in the rear end. It's very fidgety, and the groove for it is just the right size, no more, and it's very difficult to get it to seat back inside. So now that I've tightened this little assembly here in the front, I'm hoping that sealed whatever came loose. Maybe I should try and take that apart. Well, maybe for another time. Anyway, I'm tempted to check whether it's leaking again, and if it is, I'll take it apart fully and see what's going on. Let me just explain, just in case it doesn't leak anymore, and it all works. So let's pretend. So we have the pressure regulator has its little piston here, and it's more or less this shape. It has it's smooth, obviously. There's an O-ring here on the big side, and there's an O-ring. Well, it's not on the piston. It's on actually the bore in which it slides. This is obviously a little bit longer, and the piston would seal against the O-ring in the bore, and it would be able to slide back and forth, and it would face seal against that little plastic washer I showed you which is adjustable. So if it's not this, I'm just suspecting that maybe the super high pressure, because this was initially somewhere around what that gauge said, between 50 and 100 bar. I pushed it all the way to 180 bar on that gauge, which might have been probably 200. it might have blown the little O-ring here in the bore, because maybe they didn't do a good job, and the tolerance between the bore and the small cylinder is too big, and the O-ring blew out of the gap. So if this doesn't, if tightening this didn't fix it, I'll have to take it apart again and have a look at that O-ring in there and see, make sure it's not blown out, or make sure maybe the plastic screw here that actually the small piston seals against, maybe with the super, well, not super, but the high pressure, much higher than it was meant to operate at, it might have actually dented that and made it leak. So I'll have to have a look. I don't want to unscrew this, all the little plastic washer all the way. I'll just reassemble it and see if it seals. So what would be the best way to do that now? Well, I think in order to check the seal, I just have to reassemble everything. Well, I won't put on the trigger guard. So anyway, I'll put it all back together, and I'll update once I have it back together and checked we have a leak. All right, guys, some good news. No leak. It's not hissing anymore. The gauge up here is doing its job. Can we get it to focus? My God, I really should get a better camera. There. And the problem with the regulator seems to be solved. I did have a bit of a creep. Probably the 180 bar, well, 200 bar on the little cylinder that should seal, a little piston that should seal, was probably too much for the plastic, and it gave a little bit. So instead of being between 50 and 100, it's now on the 100 exactly. So it crept some 25 bars or so, but I doubt that's reliable. That is likely to be probably 120 bar. Anyway, it's fixed. I've seen it doesn't make much difference, so I'll be okay with leaving it like that. I'm not going to fiddle with it again, and the leak is not hissing anywhere. Good. So I'll put it back together, and yeah, maybe I'll put the suppressor back on this side. I might give it a go again, because I was just about to send it. Still, this gun is still within 2 years, so it's in warranty here in Czech Republic. I was thinking of sending it back because I've had so many issues. The sealing really difficult. This gauge is way off. The gauge up there broke. This leak that, okay, maybe it was my fault, but still, you know, there's a pin that should avoid that thing that I twisted and closed properly from twisting, and actually when you seal it and then pressurize the cylinder, the O-ring will tend to stick on that little thing and tend to twist that. So it's bad design probably. There's some really good features of this gun. I like the fact that I have now realized that even without the pressure regulator, it's really keeping very consistent shots. Power isn't good enough for shooting slugs, but it's that'll be good for accuracy. If I can tune the barrel well, or lap it or whatever, I think the groups will be able to tighten below an inch at 50 meters. So goodbye till next time. Hit like if you enjoyed this type of video. Subscribe if you want to be updated when there's new content, and have a good one. Bye bye.